I never tire of my beauty. It must be a sin to be this lovely. Forgive me for not introducing myself.
Hello War of the Visions fans, I'm Jockey Fox.
We haven't met before, have we?
And last week, in response to my Arena Showcase video for Dario, someone told me that I wasn't being ambitious enough.
What? Don't go getting any funny ideas.
By only aiming for 1 to 5,000. And, I've got my reasons for that. But you're not wrong either. If I wasn't trying to get 4 focus simultaneously, which maybe is the wrong thing to do. But if I weren't trying to do this with multiple accounts at once, then maybe it would be particularly easy and well worth my time to just pursue getting one account into the top 1,000. So this week I decided that I would try to do that. And first things first, let me go over a few pointers in terms of what to expect out of Arena and competing in Arena from someone who has previously been to number 1 in the Arena. I documented my progress using a entirely free light team at the time to maintain number 1 for the better part of the week in Arena. And, it was pretty dominant that week. I got a lot of footage of it, so I know what I'm talking about here when I say that, A, you need to start early. When do you wake up on Monday? Do you think you could wake up a little bit earlier to get some games in? Because you're going to want to get started before most other people. This is because once you start to get higher in the ranks, you start to get better bonuses. And this can be really helpful for keeping you ahead of the game. As long as you get your first couple of games in early and then play a bit through the day, but also play relatively seriously on that first day. Try to get to the number, or try to stay at the number by the end of the day that you want to be at for that week. And you'll find that it gets a little bit easier every day as people give up, essentially. Little by little, and you'll be able to retain that rank through the week. But if you don't make it there on the first day and you don't start your progress relatively early, it can be pretty difficult to catch up. I tried to emphasize this in my previous video on climbing through Arena, but you really do have to start early on day 1. That's my biggest tip. Hitting those high ranks fast is pretty important. But also, you want to aim for, unless you're playing at server midnight, which for me would be 4 a.m. at this time of year. Definitely not an option for me. Unless you're playing at 4 a.m., you should know that your rank is going to go down overnight. So if you're at 4,900 on Sunday night, you're going to want to keep pushing that further so that you don't get knocked down into the under 5,000 club, or the over 5,000 club, I guess, and lose out on a bunch of the Focal rewards. But also, that would kind of be a shame, wouldn't it? So for those of you who are thinking about that, just remember you're going to lose rank every day before the next day starts. And there's a lot of people who play close to server midnight. Maybe I shouldn't have joked about it as much. Apparently a lot of people do it. So I wouldn't recommend it though. It wasn't fun. And you feel even worse when you fall asleep with your phone in your hands and you're like, man, I could have won that. But with all of that being said, remember that there are unit NVC bonuses. These do not stack. That should be noted. So you only need 1 of each. But the other type of bonus is the map bonus. And this is one that you should definitely make note of for a number of reasons. 1, because the easiest and most straightforward path to victory is probably to play into the strengths of that as best you can. For instance, when Dario came out, Wind and Katana, and also I think Dark and Strike, were getting boosts at that time in Arena, which meant that Katana teams were doing really well, Strike teams were doing really well, Dark teams were doing well, and Wind teams are doing well. And any combination of those things was also doing well. So Sephiroth was doing well, Dario was doing well, etc. And what this means is you could play any of those teams and you're going to have a power bonus. It's going to be a little bit easier for you to win. The thing is, and what you'll usually find is that about half of the teams, especially once you get up into the higher ranks and the more competitive areas, are actually going to be the team that targets that team. So let's say on a week like this one where there's a lot of wind in the top areas because of kind of resounding Dario things, but also because, you know, there's a lance bonus for Fang, but also most of the lance and spear teams are wind-based, and a lot of them are also running Dario at the moment because it was working last week, so why not let it work this week? And just like last week, that means that there's a lot of ice teams that honestly aren't as good as they really would have to be in other cases if they weren't reliably finding ice teams to pick on. Which means that anything that you have that can counter ice, I mean, not only are these ice teams, they're kind of privileged ice teams, which means that they're not always that good. Like, no offense to ice, although ice is one of the elements that when I have like a generically good team, I tend to pick on ice and lightning. Yeah, pretty much those two, but sometimes wind as well. Just because they tend to be pretty easy if I don't have any other obvious advantage. Like if I'm playing light or dark, for instance, those tend to be the elements I pick on, but which has made for a pretty great week for me. If, you know, whenever people are playing wind, I can tear it down with my ice team. And anytime people are playing their ice team, I can tear it down with pretty much anything else that I've got. So that's pretty great. There's also a bit of lightning, again, because of Fang. Lightning is picking up a bit more, so Earth is a pretty good counter. But also, as I'm going to show you later in the video, pretty much any time that you have a really strong job type grouping, that can be really powerful as well. In particular, my strike team, by the end of this video, almost felt like cheating. Like I shouldn't have won some of these things. And it does get really complicated up into these higher stuffs. You're going to see me come close to losing some things that I absolutely shouldn't have on paper, and winning some things that I absolutely shouldn't have on paper. And it just goes to show that there are a lot of hidden variables within this game in terms of the ways that things have evolved. And, you know, with all of that being said, let's get into the footage. Now, this is one of those win teams that I'm kind of talking about here that's just really easy to pick on with ice. And in particular, there is one win team that I am having more trouble with, and that is the win team that is running Dario, perhaps with the ability to pierce chain himself, as he does have piercing skills, I believe in 2 of his sub-jobs, which is not for nothing a thing. Whenever I see Veritas of the Wind alongside the Wind Glaciella, that's just a really strong synergistic team. And between Veritas of the Wind, who is really tough, and like leaving him for last might be a little rough for me, but ooh, we're doing some good damage to this boy. Okay, wasn't that bad. Yeah, that They can really do a lot of damage and be ridiculously stubborn, even when you have elemental advantage on them in both directions. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. They're good enough to take care of you anyways. So let's look at Earth, because again, like I said, there's a lot of lightning around. And I'm going to look at a couple different lightning teams just to try to pick one that's going to be the least accurate as well. I will say it is a little bit of an issue that a number of newer lightning units are more accurate. I think Halloween Lucio probably pushed Earth evasion to the point where that type of Earth evasion can deal with it, but having older evasion units, I am still struggling a bit with it. But as you can see, we're already getting our misses, and we're just getting started. A little unfortunate. It looks like Ketone couldn't do a lot of damage to Astrius because of his barriers, so she just went with the typeless attack. A number of units have been able to hit Ketone, though, even on this team. And I would say that Astrius is probably roughly as accurate, at least in practice, as Lightning, and Lightning tends to be accurate enough to hit even relatively evasive units pretty reliably. This is one of the things I love about Garnet, though. She just heals back and gives a really amazing shield over a really large AoE. It feels a lot like Sylvie's LB, but more reliable, more castable. It's just pretty great, and it can hold together some teams that it probably shouldn't. Like, this team is kind of aging jank. I'm gonna be real with you all. This is not a team that I would recommend for you to build. I think the whole time I've been building Katone, I've been thinking, yep, she's a little bit behind her, past her prime. But they keep giving her interesting abilities, and they keep not quite being enough, but just enough that on the right team she can do some fun stuff. And when she doesn't get hit, oh my god, is she a monster. Or when she doesn't get hit reliably at the very least. Because she absolutely has ways to restore her health, and whew, and like, look at this. They know they can't hit her. She's already stopped the biggest of the bads on their team. Like, Alaya especially likes to get way out in front. And interestingly enough, like, to some of the mage meta that's coming in the future, I think, like, all mage teams are really going to have a lot of trouble with Katone's LB in single shot formats. It's not necessarily going to be the counter that it could be in guild battle, but in something like this, being able to hit the mage that gets way out in front with stop, that's just going to be a big deal. Like, if you can factor out one of their units reliably, it's going to be pretty good. This team looks pretty darn accurate, and also they've got the trifecta. This team's got the trifecta as well. Oh, I've been friends with this guy for like 3 years in this game. We send each other friend coins every day. Iconically, this man has had the status update for about 3 years that says, keep wearing mask. I guess he recently decided that the pandemic was finally over and decided to change his in-game status message. But I want to say, shout out to this guy. I usually see him as I'm getting pretty high in arena, and here he is in the top 1,000, so definitely one of the people that's building up Folka the fastest for sure. But again, this team wins super reliably against anything but the all-Pierce win teams. And, you know, as weird as that sounds, again, element isn't everything. It's just a defensive and offensive bonus. And having both of those uniformly over the other team is really important, for sure. But there are so many other offensive and defensive things going on in the game right now that one alone isn't nearly the thing it used to be. Which means that there's enough variety in, you know, win teams that certain win teams can beat ice on occasion. And it's always kind of been this way, but I think it's getting more and more this way as we're starting to shift away from elemental and into like just look at how little damage Glaciella is taking, at least early on. You know, the shields are gone now. We have problems. We're definitely gonna have problems if Snow stays charmed, but thankfully someone removed that for me. God, the stun too. Good. This team also chains really well. Alaya can be really devastating with that 3-shot finisher. From here, I'm going to be looking at some less common strategies. So, in the video ranking various job types, I'm going to be ranking Pierce pretty high. The spear teams are very good. And this is essentially a spear team, and I'll show you why. But this is the team that I was talking about ice not being reliable against. I wouldn't call this an ice counter by any means. I wouldn't call this a missile counter or a lot of those things. That would be overhyped. And this team isn't OP necessarily. In fact, I don't think it's one of the stronger ones. But you will see it right now all throughout Arena because of the increase to Pierce units. And Dario just being like a great new tank for this element. So it definitely has some really strong synergies. It's unfortunate how limited those pieces of equipment are, but this gives a lot of general boosts. It's going to generally increase his power. Let's get these magic BCs off of here. I'm going to have to switch the vision cards around a lot on this team. Let me fast forward through some of that. Alright, so let's give it a shot. Let's see what wind can do. Now I will say, evasion can be a really powerful mechanic, and there aren't a lot of Earth teams that are ranking right now because there aren't the most Lightning teams. Fang just hasn't been super popular, and Lightning just isn't working super well, and one of the most reliable ways for Earth to deal with Lightning is evasion, and that can kind of cut back towards wind as well, because wind isn't always the best for accuracy either. They are better than lightning, and I think one of the things that this team is especially going to need to deal with any sort of evasion units is for Glaciella to be as accurate as possible. I think that Veritas of the Winds is pretty accurate, but I'm definitely going to need Glaciella to hit Lucio here. And if I can't do that, or Glaciella loses, or just goes out of this match too fast, I'm probably dead, even though I have plenty of elemental advantages here. And probably one of the best ways of defending against Bradley that there is, which is just elemental resistance. He can't penetrate that. So we already got one KO like really fast. Bradley is doing okay, but not great. Oh, it looks like we're about to lose Veritas though. And we're having trouble actually removing Bradley. Bradley's pretty evasive on this comp too. I mean, relatively speaking. Glaciella had no issue hitting him, so she's quite accurate here. Oh, but she's going down. But still, didn't miss him. She was definitely needed to deal with Bradley, but she finished that fight none too soon. Definite big shout out to Lucio here. And for a similar reason, I think 2P is going to be particularly difficult for this team. At this point in my life, in particular, I've recorded the moment where I felt maybe least or most sad that I didn't pull for either of these excellent Earth units. I like their dynamics in general. I like it, Earth Evasion. I don't know. I felt like I had Earth Evasion at home. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, Earth Evasion at home was just Zazonic its own. Anyways, it left me a lot of viz to save up to get Oldoa, and maybe that's better. Maybe that wasn't the wrong choice. But once again here we're seeing exactly how difficult it can be for a team to deal with an evasion unit. Although the fact that we can keep spamming hate moves and healing and keeping her interested in Dario, who she can't take down, and keeping our unit that can actually hit them safe, that really made us a lot safer in that fight than we were against Lucio. But looking at this and just kind of observing some things about Dario so far, I would have to say that, you know, most of this job I don't like. Like, I thought I would like more pieces of it. Attritional protection, unhappy ending, maddening verse, all for different reasons sound pretty good, but then you look at other things in this kit. You can get, you know, a similar move with disable instead of confusion. You can get all sorts of other things, and some other builds that I'm going to show you later on in this are going to cancel out some of the effects of something like attritional protection as well. So there's some instances where you would get basically nothing from that. So here's an all-Earth team, and I think that this team is going to have some more trouble. Some of the previous teams that we've been looking at have been aligned a little bit more around job synergies. I think there was a Lightning and Bradley team in here. Didn't work out great for Lightning, from what I remember in that fight, even though she was the one who didn't have an elemental disadvantage. She just seemed to kind of do the worst. So I would say most of the support there was probably for Earth, with a little bit for Night. But as you can see, against a more straight up and traditional Earth team, one that doesn't try to dodge my moves, it's a pretty easy and assured win, as you would expect. And really, this is the strength of Earth evasion. It's one of the better evasion strategies, right? Another thing that I would like to show you here is that, what I'm showing you right now is more of my general purpose build. That is why I don't like this. But I think if I switch him into the anti-magic build, I'm going to want to keep attritional healing or archaic healing on. That might be a good reason for using this job, because I'm going to have to change my TMR. But otherwise, outside of that, I think double deprivation is better. So I'm going to switch back to this job, but just keep in mind for the build I'm about to show you, it might be worth it to get that additional heal in there through your sub job. Even more than having a disable skill. But also turning off all of those extra things is going to be helpful for getting all of his buffs off. Magi Piercer is going to interrupt some of his kit. I really recommend probably turning that off. Degeneration Blade is interesting for countering healing meta. And, he has a way of removing AP, so you don't even need that effect off of attritional protection. So, while there are a lot of really good things in Grimoire Keeper for him, I just don't think that any of it adds anything. It's a very close call with a lot of those skills, but I think that for the most part, better things are done without them. Now, unfortunately, while I do get to show off some new UI stuff, I'm realizing that I don't have his katana or any recipes for it. So, I guess I'm stuck with the Legendary Reliquaries katana, but it's doing fine so far. And while I take this little intermission, I want to remind you to like and subscribe. Check out that link in the description if you want more Jackie Fox content. And let me know what you're thinking. Let me see your thoughts in a comment. So this is going to be the next build for him. I'm going to be using Balo's smartphone. And this is going to be the anti-magic build. Balo's smartphone is important for that. It's going to cancel out Courage, Protect, and Shell, importantly for himself, and Haste. So you aren't going to be able to use those strategies anymore. But, again, switching to Grimoire Keeper for the archaic healing, because we've removed one of the heals from his kit, we're going to be giving him his own TMR so he can put on himself silence onto his attacks. And that is going to be the other way in which he's going to be anti-magic. He's going to have that, but also a lot of, offensive mage teams have tons and tons of status effects. So the easiest way to keep him safe is Balo's smartphone. If you're playing during April Fool's last year and you have this, it is a great piece on him, especially for the meta that we're coming into. I think that this is a huge piece of kit for whoever can wear it, especially for your tank or for your healer, or for just whoever you want to keep protected. And I think he's a really great option. Now, unfortunately, it's looking like while I thought that switching to the All-Pierce team, I could bully Fire a bit with Elda here. And while he's doing okay at this matchup, nobody else is. We're really getting wrecked here. And while I do stand by the idea that Fire is probably one of the weakest elements, and not necessarily even saying that any of these characters are particularly great, this team fucking spanked. It worked, and
I need to reapply my hypnosis.
In a second here, I'm going to show you kind of what their build is for that. And it's good stuff. I've seen a lot more good Setia content recently than I have ever, really. Since she was released, more people have figured out how to use her really effectively recently. And I think it's probably speaking to her upgrades recently being good, or her being a good unit that was kind of subpar. I mean, not subpar, but par maybe. And this finally puts her above, pushes her beyond as something that people want to use, but she's quite strong now. And, while I'm talking about this, I'm switching the Legendary Reliquary's armor over to Elda, because he is more of the durable one of these three. He's the closest thing I would have to having a tank for this build. And for Spear, since I don't have Dialdo, and don't really plan on going for Volke, even though he seems pretty cool. I think I'll pass. So here's the thing about Strike, though. This Strike team in particular. It can be pretty much any element that has a weakness to one of its units. Perrine will rake a fire team over the coals. Snow will absolutely brick wall most wind teams. And Alaya will absolutely shred anything from squishy missile back row units to anything water. And they do this reliably enough, and they're generally tough enough and durable enough that they do this quite reliably over a number of things. You just saw me be wind with them. So let's aim for something else. Here's a water team. It's a very anti-physical water team, though. I do want to make that clear. A lot of these units are very good against physical. I could have made a mistake here, because really, my only major advantage here is Alaya herself. Also, you're going to notice my tank starts in a really weird place on this one, and it kind of, also Perrine gets way too far out in front, and this is probably not ideal. But because Perrine is what she is, she usually manages to survive until Snow gets onto the scene. That diverts focus away from her, so that both of them can essentially be the tank, but in such a sequence that neither of them necessarily get taken out, and they both kind of collide around the same time that you get all of that bonus damage coming in from Alaya, who has, definitely safe. Also, Immobilize on her just really wrecks her day. But especially when I get in the way like that. If Alaya was on a different side of him, she might be able to vortex kick him. But, it really moves the damage around the team in such a way that they tend to survive really well while just dumping out damage the entire time they're around. I mean, even Snow will slap some damage onto the field. And even Snow isn't necessarily for that. He's kind of there to stun lock a 3x3 area. And he does it incredibly effectively well. And it just makes him even tougher as a unit. And his durability and Perrine's durability and their ability to draw attention to themselves just keeps... And also, while we're at it, while Perrine is just defending herself from their entire team and trying to solo them personally, often being the one to take out the entire team, or at least more than anybody else. Perrine is just murdering people on this map. It's absolutely nuts. So finally I'm getting a Perrine v Perrine matchup. We'll see how their Perrine can handle this map. It's also important to note, though, that while Perrine is out there doing that, she's getting haste on herself. She's restoring her own HP, often. She's getting counterattacks in on these big AoE attacks that target her and the people behind her often. But also, with Vortex Kick being something that she just loves to do, she's often applying healing power down, and because of the build I have on her using Thornlit, agility down to the entirety of the other team. This is, for a lot of reasons, one of the two most crippling things you could do to a lot of modern teams, because there's a lot of self-healing. Also, Geodude again! Geodude versus Strike Team this time. You saw me take him down with 3 ice units before, and that seems like the obvious way to go against a team like this, which is quite strong. But here to prove that just Snow can basically do it by himself, or even, I think in this fight it might have just been Pareen. Pareen might have just bodied this team. No, that was an ice team. Okay, that's going to be later on. But this team just works really, really well together. And just ruthlessly moves through the field. And no one, like, Snow gives them ADD because they don't even notice him at first, necessarily. And they focus on Pareen, and then the second he gets, like, one or two turns into the field, because he has that increased movement, by that time, they just completely forget that Pareen exists. Definitely don't go and finish her off. Water might be too easy to try again. People are telling me a lot about A2 being good. Let's see if we can find an ice team with her on it that I definitely think I can beat. And really one of the keys here, because one of the advantages that I think Strike really has is at least two if not three of these units have like increased movement base. So like they can really get across a field. I mean, obviously at this point, Pareen isn't, but and this is a really bad start for her. I was feeling so scared of how this match was going to go at this very point, but well, a lot of people tell me that A2 is really powerful, but this is more my experience of her. Someone coming in and one-tapping her for like 13k damage and re-raise remove. All of her defenses gone in a single hit. Like, yes, she does a lot of other things that I will absolutely praise, but it is really hard to praise a unit for what they can do if they don't survive to do it. And quite often, I don't see her surviving to do very much, unfortunately. I mean, she does stuff as she's swinging in, thank God. Because, you know, once she gets in range of people, she's kind of squishy. You know, much like these missile units here. So this has been something that I've definitely been able to pick on. You know, especially, this is one of the things that's definitely keeping me from using Edward on my team. And why I'm kind of glad that I don't use Edward on my team anymore. But, you know, I can really, really reliably and effectively run into ice teams because, you know, between Eliza and Alaya and A2, as long as I can get to them, and these units are really good at getting to people, then I can probably one-tap them. And if they can't survive being around me, then I think I won. So with all of that being said, that was all Snow with 0 reincarnation. So let me hook him up some Ice Alcris statues so that I can give him 8 reincarnations, which is kind of the most that I can. I just bought a lot of shards for him. I'm about out of his. But I think he deserves it. I think he deserves some more, but I'm a little broke right now, so we'll work on that in the future. But this guy definitely is doing things for my team. It makes it reliable and like versatile and feel like a Swiss Army knife. Like there's a variety of things that I can take out very easily and reliably with this team. That, you know, it doesn't feel like a lot of teams that I've used in the past, except for maybe like Light or Dark, which always have been kind of at a different relation in the meta to everything else. In terms of like what gear to put on Snow, though, you know, you have the Tiger Fangs, the AoE resistance is cool, you have all the things that come with the Dragon Fangs, but I think one of my favorites here is the Cat Claws +6, mainly because of the agility. If you want to speed him up at least. If you want him to be a slower unit, a member of your party, and he can be, which will kind of cause him to come from behind like he was on my team, especially with Shikuchi to give him that 4 movement, giving him extra agility might be the way to go. If you want him to keep up, or even get way out in front, because one of the reasons I usually don't necessarily focus on agility for Snow is that Shikuchi gets him out in front pretty well. You know, having 4 movement really does it, even if you're getting turns a little bit slower than everybody else. But as a tank, you really want to be out in front, so on shorter maps you might need both to keep him reliably in front of other units. So there it is. That's higher level arena. If you didn't think I could do it, wow, you really haven't been paying attention to my channel, but hey, that's okay. Welcome to the channel. Like and subscribe. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. What are you running in Arena right now. What's worked for you? What teams are you the most scared of? Do you face off against teams like this? Have you seen Strike? Because, like, Snow came out at a weird time for the Strike meta, so a lot of people didn't have the foresight to, like, get him and build Strike. So I haven't seen him on a ton of Strike teams yet. And I feel like he's maybe a little bit old enough at this point that I might not see any Strike players pulling for him. Although I think he was really the star of this collaboration, recollaboration, whatever, even more than Fang was. He's just so great. So, But as you can see with his LB, he does not need bells anymore, which means that there's a number of accessory options that you could put on him. But another thing that I like to do for him is just give him Uriel's TMR, the battle dress, the Rubus battle dress, and then equip him with an accessory in his main slot, like the Ice Ring, if you want to give him more protection against wind. It can be reliably very, very wind resistant in that way. So thanks for tuning in, like and subscribe, hit the link in the description for more Jackie Fox content, and with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.